What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another Friday night interactive live sports talk. It's the Play Caller Sports Talk show presented by Sideline Sports. As y'all can see, man, we got a celebrity guest picker with us tonight. Stevie Wonder joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Nah, man, it's my co-host, man, Cool McCain. He's doing the Thanos thing with his name tonight, apparently. So yeah, man, I was rocking them same glasses about a month ago, man. So I definitely feel where you're coming from. Right now, that LASIK looking at bright screens is not a joke, bro.
No, sir.
So man, we got a great show tonight, man. We're gonna talk some NCAA. We got both men's and women's Final Four stuff to talk about. We're gonna go ahead and break down the current situation with the NBA playoffs because we're getting real close to the playoffs being set. So we, start getting into a little bit of that. Maybe start projecting a little bit about who wants to see who. And of course, we got a few NFL stories we're going to talk about as well. So it's going to be an action-packed show. But before we jump into that, just in case somebody's new to the show, allow us to introduce ourselves. They call me Box. You can find me at Box Talk Sports, or of course at Real Play Callers on Twitter. And I'm joined as always by my co-host, the other half of the Tag Team Champions, the Interactive Sports Talk, the one and the only.
Cool McCain, baby. Let's
and
go.
Together, we are the Play Callers. Yes. So man, we got like I said, an action-packed show tonight. Let me go ahead and put our banner up there so people know how to reach us. And let's start off with something that's going down tonight. The women's Final Four. I know you're always telling people, man, they need to watch women's basketball a lot more than what people do. And especially because of the fundamentals that get shown. These ladies have some serious skills. So let's start with number one Stanford versus UConn. What are you seeing here? What do you think is going to happen in this game? What do people need to be on the lookout for? And of course, as soon as I go to ask you a question, you
So
froze up
people
on
need to
me.
be on the lookout for a couple of things back in the Final Four. Of course, it wouldn't be any other way. But you can hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So what I was saying is there's a lot of things you can look into, but the main thing is that, Stanford are your reigning and defending champs. They're back in the Final Four. They've getting close to another taste of a championship. But there's a couple of teams in the way. And first off is UConn. UConn was the number one seed, honestly. They played in their home region as the number two and beat NC State, who I think was another very, very viable contender for the championship. And it really was a Final Four game. Unfortunately, it happened in the Elite Eight. And UConn was able to win that game in double overtime. So one of the things that you have to learn about UConn is UConn has a good talent. They've got some young girls that had to kind of step up because of the injury to Paige Bickers. But Paige is back. She had a big game or a big second half. They have a core of good players. They have their superstar, but then they have some other really good players. So what I want people who may not have watched a lot of women's basketball, who may decide to tune in tonight, just watch out for Stanford. You'll figure out who those people are very quickly. When we look at who's going to win this game, I think that we're going to have a tight UConn win. I think UConn's kind of in that mode. Gino does not lose when he gets to this point, much at all. And when he gets to the championship game, he normally does not lose.
Yeah, they've got, what,
But we'll
11
talk about that later.
championships?
But I think you're really looking at, yes, they have quite a few. And he's in the finals. So the thing right names tonight, Stanford and UConn is going to be it's not going to be the classic that UConn and NC State was, but it's going to be a very solid, very entertaining, very fundamental game. You definitely want to be watching that. I am thinking UConn is going to be the one to win this game.
Okay. Yeah. Aaliyah Edwards, obviously a great player. That is really kind of carried UConn. I think, like you said, a
Mhm.
lot of people are going to maybe look at the NC State games. Oh, they had to go to, overtime. And, you know, if they don't understand where NC State was as a team, then they might hold it against them. But that, like you said, really should have been a Final Four matchup to happen in the Elite Eight. So definitely going to be an interesting game. And they're very battle tested, both in this tournament as well as just, historically.
Mhm. Yep. We talk about a lot about blue bloods, excuse me, in the men's side.
Yeah.
UConn is definitely a blue blood, on the women's side. And, when you're playing against one of those teams, it's always going to be difficult.
Yeah.
But I believe a good matchup, either team could win. I'm just putting my belief in UConn in this.
Now, no matter which one of those teams wins, they've got two teams on the other side that have a little something to say about who's going to ultimately take home the title this year. Because we got two number one seeds actually battling on the other side in South Carolina and Louisville. So break this one down for me.
So the first thing I want people to understand is Louisville has a player named Haley Van Lith. They have other players, but I want you to understand Haley Van Lith is a dog
Yeah.
in all the best possible ways. And this team, they will grind you down. They will run on you. They will battle you on offense and defense. They're going to play hard. They're going to follow her. And they have a lot of scrappy, very athletic, very talented women on that team.
Yeah.
And, you look and you wonder why they're number one seed. Trust me, they deserve it.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's a team on the other side that is loaded with talent. They have the player of the year.
Yep.
They have. I'm not even going to start to name players because if you get off that list, this South Carolina team, I'm going to name one person, Leah Boston. The South Carolina team, it has a lot of talent. I think I'm freezing again, but I think I'm back. Am I back now?
Yeah.
Carolina team that makes it amazing is you also have a great coach.
Yep.
Right? Don Staley, offense, defense, they do it all too. So this is another game that you could honestly look at and say, man, this could be a championship game, but we're getting in the Final Four. I believe it's going to be a knockdown, drag out fight. I don't think either team gets out of the 60s, but I think that you're going to see two teams fight really hard. I just believe South Carolina is going to have a little bit more depth-wise and talent-wise overall, and I think they're going to be able to win this game. But, man, this is going to be a good one too, y'all. This is two good games. You definitely want to be watching these tonight. There's a reason why they're not on the same days as men, and you should be watching. Trust me.
Yep. So you don't have no excuse about, I'd rather watch the men
Yep.
on several nights. So for all you people that's like, you can't have enough sports, for all y'all that love Thursday night games because it's an extra night of football, it's an extra night of basketball.
Man, enjoy some of the
Y'all to
best
watch it.
programs. Yeah, enjoy some of the best programs in women's basketball.
Yeah.
Some of the best players, best teams. Trust me. Gino Ariema, and I just want to go back to UConn real quick, compared Paige to Diana Taurasi.
Yeah.
So that should tell you everything you know if you know anything about women's basketball. Diana Taurasi.
Sure.
So that's that. Trust me, these are two games that I will be watching or at least listening to.
So you might not be watching a whole lot.
Maybe not watching, but
So man, one thing I want to kind of point out here too, that this is just a rare occurrence. Go ahead and write this date down. This is not an April Fool's joke. It is April 1st, 2022. The time is 7:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And me and my co-host, for the first time ever, are in total agreement on who we're picking to win games. Yeah, rarely ever happens, but we are actually going with the exact same teams here.
That is a rare occurrence.
That is a
In
very
multiple
rare occurrence.
games. That is a rare occurrence.
All right.
Because this guy, man, I don't know what he'd be thinking.
Well, I would bring up our picks from last season, but neither one of us really did anything worth bragging about, so we won't. We'll just leave that alone.
That's fair.
So heading over to the men's side tomorrow, we're going to talk about the game I know you really want to talk about last. So that way, you can go over all you want on that one. But let's start with Villanova and Kansas. Make sure that they get a chance to get some love here. And talk about that game real quick, because that's a 1 versus 2 matchup.
So you're going to get a really good game there. Kansas is where they're at for a reason. They definitely are a Final Four team. There's probably about 8 to 9 teams this year that you could really say from the men's side could be in the Final Four. Obviously, only 4 of them can make it. Brackets and matchups determine a lot of it. But Villanova and Kansas are both capable of winning this game. What I think the difference is going to be is Villanova's a team that has something to play for. One of their star players got injured, and he's out. So, as soon as someone's out, 2 things happen. The media starts to talk about, they're missing this guy, and he's one of their offensive weapons. And, I don't know if they're going to be able to get things done without him. And I don't know how things are going to go. Well, guess what? There's a locker room full of young men and a coach who has championship pedigree that are going to say, you know what? Nobody believes in us anymore. Now we get a chance to be the underdog because nobody believes in us because we're missing a key component. So for a game, it always works out to me in the favor of that team with that loss because everyone is playing hard and doing their best to overcompensate. Kansas is what I would consider the blue blood program. They're going to play hard. They're not going to get blown out. They didn't get here by chance. They won their way here. But I just think Villanova, they have that extra spark. And you sometimes need that second chip if you already have one on your shoulder. Villanova has that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you that a lot of times when you have that injury, guys know they have to step up. And especially when you hear the media start talking about, oh, they're in trouble. There's no way they're going to win this game. They need that person. That's that rallying point a lot of times. I think sometimes when you lose somebody in the moment, it costs you. But when you lose them ahead of time and you can kind of game plan for it, it's a totally different scenario. So definitely be something to keep a watch on and see how that one goes.
Absolutely.
So man, we will go ahead and keep this moving right along. And we got a matchup that I think a lot of people might be a little surprised that we've never actually seen in the Final Four before. And that is Duke and North Carolina. So 2 blue blood programs. So
from the same state.
Yeah, from the same state. So obviously, for those who do not know, you are a huge North Carolina basketball fan. So I know you got some stuff to say on this. And I'm just going to tell y'all, if North Carolina wins this game, if you are a Duke fan, just don't even tune in next week. Just watch the replay, skip the whole segment where he's going to be talking about North Carolina because this dude is going to be unbearable if North Carolina wins this game.
Well, here's the thing. I'll say this. Beating our biggest rival in the biggest rivalry in college basketball for the first time ever would be amazing. It would be great. It would be something that's very exciting. But it's still not a national championship.
Yeah.
So the main goal, whether we win this game or if we do win this game, is a national championship. Yeah, beating Duke would be great, but there's no such thing as a consolation prize. You either win the championship or you don't. So, Hubert Davis, first-year coach, a lot of people doubted him. You can go back and check the tape. I was not one of those people. I said he should get the job. I said he would do good in the job. I said it might take him some time to acclimate. That's a reasonable expectation. It took him about half a season. So from the Carolina side of things, and we're going to really look at this, not going to take too much time, but we're really going to look at this from both sides. From the Carolina side, you're playing good, you're playing well, you're hot. Your last loss was in the ACC championship game, in a game where you didn't shoot well. The concern for Carolina is Hubert Davis does not go deep enough. This game is going to be quick tempoed, emotionally charged. You're going to have to go pull in a Justin McCoy. You're going to want to bring in some of those guys that you haven't been playing as much and at least steal some minutes. You can't ask Caleb Love. You can't ask RJ Davis to play almost a full game or a full game against this Duke backcourt for a third time. You have to find ways to steal some minutes. You have guys on the bench that can come in and give you some minutes, and you're going to have to do that. Brady Manek's going to have to play well. We're going to have to get Leaky Black being that guy that he is, a little bit of the do-everything guy, making the shots when needed, doing what he does. And then Armando Bacot is going to have to show up big. When we do go to Puff Johnson, he's going to need to come in and do his thing. But it's a matter of staying hot and hopefully at least 3 to 4 of our guys really, really shooting the ball well from the line as well as from the field. That's what it's going to take for UNC to win. For Duke, you're going to have the favor of the referees. Mm-hmm. I'm saying this before the game, so if anybody wants to run back later, whatever, I don't care. You're going to have the favor of the referees because Coach K is on his last run.
And they've had the favor. You said that last week.
Yeah, they've had the favor of the referees the entirety of the tournament. So you're going to have some calls that you're going to have to keep your composure for if you're Carolina. If you're Duke, you're going to have to play your game. You want to stay close because if there are close calls that have to be made, they're going to go your way. But at the same time, this is a North Carolina team that you're going to be motivated to try to beat because of what they did to you on Coach K night in his last regular season game. But, earlier in the season, before that game, Duke put an absolute spanking on North Carolina.
Yeah.
It was, I think, 20 points. It was a spanking. They looked like men and we looked like boys.
Yeah.
So if you're North Carolina, you want to think about that. You want to remember that, and you want to use that for your motivation. If you're Duke, Coach K's final game, they spoiled it for us. This is the first time that they're meeting in the tournament whatsoever, and it happens to be in the Final Four. So This is going to be, acknowledge them. This is going to be the game that everyone is watching and talking about. Today, tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, this is the game. So being a part of this game as a fan, it's going to be very exciting. You know who I'm picking to win? We don't even have to ask that question.
No, we don't. So for those in the that's joining us tonight, viewing, let us know in the chat, man. Like, who are you picking to win these games? Are you picking Duke, North Carolina, going Villanova, Kansas? Also let us know who you picking to win those women's Final Four games that we talked about a little earlier in the show. So, go ahead and drop those in the comments. Let us know. I know we got a lot of Duke and North Carolina fans that tune into the show, so I definitely want to see y'all predictions on that one. I tell you, man, although I do agree with you about the way that teams can sometimes play, and I'm certainly not going to count Villanova out, I am actually going to pick Kansas. I just feel like the matchup wise, I feel like they have a little bit of a matchup advantage. And then when you take into account the injury, I think that kind of puts them over the top.
Good.
Yeah, so I am going to go with them. So we're not going to be completely agreeing on everything.
Good, because that was making me nervous.
Yeah. I got to tell you, man, I want to pick North Carolina because they have really just been super consistent and they've been getting production from all over the court from different people every single round. And that always bodes well for you when you get into these situations. But it's really hard to pick against the team that the referee's going to have their back.
And by the way, Hubert Davis is the college coach of the year.
Yeah. So I will say you were right. You did, call Hubert Davis beginning of the season. I remember when y'all actually made the hire. within like 5 minutes, you actually called me, told me how excited you were about the hire. So much credit to you on that. And I know that even as some people have doubted him throughout the season, you've been like, y'all need to stick with it. So I got to go with Duke, though. I mean, the thing is, I don't think y'all are going to blow them out. And I think that if the game is close, the referee is going to find a way to give this game to Duke. That's why I'm picking them.
No, I mean,
if this was a fair matchup, I would probably pick you.
There's no such thing as a fair matchup. Coach K's whatever's going to end up being his last game, right? Whether it's this game, whether it's in the national championship. So, I mean, the thing is, man, we both know what's going to have to happen. Everyone who's watched basketball knows what's going to have to happen. UNC is going to have to do the same thing they did early in the tournament against Baylor. They're going to have to get up big early. They're going to get up big early so that when the calls and things start going against them, they're able to keep their composure and stay in the game. If Duke jumps out to a big lead early, that's going to bode not too well for UNC. It's going to be a game of momentum back and forth. But normally in these games, the person that can kind of stack a little bit at the beginning, that's the one who ends up doing some damage. But you never know. But somehow the Heels are going to win. Let's go.
Real quick, man, before we jump off of the college basketball talk, one of our viewers and mutual friends, Dan Gilbert, has been complaining that we didn't talk about Texas A&M and how they got left out of the tournament. And you told him that if Texas A&M won the NIT, you would talk about them on our show.
Yes.
But I decided that I'm going to talk about them anyways because they lost. They lost to, was it Xavier they lost to?
Yep.
Yeah, so they lost to Xavier. Xavier won their first NIT, I believe. So Texas A&M, yes, you had an argument for why you should have been in the tournament. But by the time that you're like not even getting picked to go in the 68, it's kind of hard to like feel bad for you. And then you went out and you didn't even win the NIT. So you didn't even win the losers consolation bracket. So I don't want to hear anything more from you, Gilbert, about Texas A&M basketball.
And the worst thing is they lost by 1 point.
1 point. So, man, we're going to move on and we're going to talk a little NBA playoff action. So we're going to start off playoffs. It's the wrong sports here. That's football.
Still playoffs.
So we're going to start off with the Eastern Conference over here. Let me pull up the standings here. So right now we got the Miami Heat holding on to a very slim lead for the number 1 seed. Milwaukee Bucks are breathing down their neck. The 76ers and the Celtics are not far behind them. I actually put those two backwards. Celtics are sitting at 3. And even the Bulls, aren't really too far back. The Raptors are
or
right
the
there.
Raptors.
Yeah, I was going to say, those top 6 seeds, man, they're all still very much in this.
Dude,
how do you see it out?
It's crazy.
Who's going to get the 1 seed? Let me just make this simple. Who's going to get the 1 seed?
There's a team that has an MVP candidate, that has supporting members, that just got back their starting big from injury. They're the reigning and defending NBA champions and Eastern Conference champions. Last year, they won it from, I believe, the 3 seed. This year, I believe they're going to go into it from the 1 seed.
Okay.
And that's going to be the Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay.
Now, the team that will be at number 4 is going to be the Philadelphia 76ers.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why they're going to be 4th.
Okay.
They're going to be 4th because of James Harden. James Harden is starting to show us that you are who we thought you were.
Wrong sport again, sir.
Always. No, it's not the wrong sport. It's the correct sport. You are who we thought you were, James Harden. I'm not a Harden hater by any means, but the truth is what you see. So if you look at what you see, James Harden does not produce in those clutch situations. I talked about it before at the end of the season and the playoffs. He's doing the same thing again. His coach even said
Mhm.
it was the reason they
Yep.
lost.
Yep.
Philadelphia's still good enough to win a championship if they run their offense properly, but there's times where he gets in and the ball stops moving. Philadelphia's defense is predicated on ball movement and their own MVP candidate and Joel Embiid being the top guy. Harden's kind of fluctuating back to that Harden hero ball. And that's going to hurt Philadelphia. But these last few games, Harden decides to step back and play within the system. That'll correct itself.
Yeah.
Miami, I think, is going to end up number 2. And I think Boston's going to stay steady at 3. That's what I think is going to happen. But the thing is, absolutely, Big E, what's going on, big homie? But I think that it's so close. But I think that's going to be the order. I think you're just going to switch the Bucks and the Heat. Celtics are going to stay at 3. Sixers are going to stay at 4. They may even drop to 5.
Yeah.
Because Chicago is right there. The Raptors are they're like the San Antonio was a few years ago. Like they're a really good team win-wise, but you can't really think of one player where you're like, this dude is like a dominant all-star.
Yeah.
But Nick Nurse has those boys playing good, and they're right now right above that cutoff line for the playing game.
Yeah.
Cleveland have a little bit of work to do to catch them.
Yeah.
It would be pretty difficult, I think, just because of how tight it's gotten. But it's still mathematically possible.
Yeah, to make up a 2-game lead with like 5-6 games left. Yeah, with like 5-6 games left. That's a pretty big ask.
It's a big ask.
Yeah,
but
it
can be done. Yeah, it can be done, but it's not easy.
So if I'm doing my math correctly, I do believe that we are pretty much set in terms of the top 10 seeds in the East. I believe the Knicks and below have all been mathematically eliminated from even getting into the play-in games.
Yeah, I would think. So yes, yeah.
So right now you got the Hawks sitting at 10. You got the Hornets sitting at 9. You got the Nets sitting at 8 and the Cavs sitting at 7. I don't see a situation in which the Hawks or the Hornets, either one, are going to overtake the Nets. Unless KD's injury ends up being really bad and that somehow costs the Nets some games. But I feel like we're pretty much looking at that as some matchups, right? More than likely here is it's going to be them, that 9 and 10 seed is going to be Charlotte against Atlanta.
So see, here's what's funny about that. If you look at just the last 10 games, simple way to kind of gauge how they're playing. The Nets are 6-4. The Hornets are 8-2. The Hawks are 7-3. They all three sit right now at 40 and 37.
Right.
So I would not put it past the Nets to maybe fall out of that 8 spot.
Okay.
But my expectation would be that they would stay there.
Yeah.
But it's so tight that they could fall. But here's the thing, truthfully, for me. And you haven't asked the question yet, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it anyway.
Okay.
Of the teams that are playing, the Nets are the most dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know that was going to be the question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the obvious question, right?
Yep. And the next most dangerous team is the Hawks. You know why the Hawks are the next most dangerous team to play in? Because they have Trae Young.
Because they finally put a head out of their butt.
And they have Trae Young. When you have that dominant scorer, one game, they get hot, you send somebody home.
Yep.
Right? So when I look at Cleveland has had an amazing season. And overall, they're deeper than the Nets. So if they have to play, they could possibly beat them. Toronto, if they end up falling, they could possibly beat them. But if Kevin Durant, fresh off that stinging loss to the Bucks last night, on missing that 3 at the buzzer, decides to dial in just a little bit more. And by the way, I have to give credit where it's due. Kyrie Irving played a great game last night. He was in the control. He played well. Obviously made a couple of mistakes. Nobody's perfect. But he played number 2. He played Robin. He was the best Robin on the court, but he played Robin. And if he does that and they get those other pieces involved, they have some weapons. But I just, I don't see them being able to climb out of the 8 until the play-in. And they may go down. The benefit, of course, for anyone who hasn't been watching or just needs a quick refresher on the rules, if you're in 7th or 8th, you play a game. You win that game, you're 7th seed. Doesn't matter if you were 7 or 8 before. If you lose that game, you have to play a second game between the winner of the 9-10 game. Yeah. So if you are in that playing game, you want to try to win that first one. You also get a 7th seed. What I find funny is a lot of people saying that teams are not trying to be at the top 2 spots so they don't have to play the Nets. Well, I'll tell you this. As good as the Nets are, if you want to be champs of the conference or you want to be NBA champions, why not go through them? Why run? If you're running for the Nets, you're not championship material to start with.
Exactly. Yeah, it kills me when people say that, man. Like, oh, they want to avoid such and such. The only time I would honestly say you want to avoid somebody is if that team is just a matchup nightmare for you. Then you might be hoping that you don't see them and that somebody else takes them out before they get to you.
Yeah.
But all else being equal, if you were a championship caliber team, you shouldn't care who you play.
You shouldn't. And don't sleep on the Bulls. The Bulls are resurgent. They've had a little bit of a downswing with some injuries and different things, but they're resurgent. They coming back. And that's the thing, man. I'm excited about the Eastern Conference because it's, as you can see by the records, it's tight. It's nat booty tight.
It's nat booty tight over there in the Western Conference right now, bro. So if things were to stay where they are right now, if the seeding stayed the same in terms of that 7 through 10 spot, if I'm hearing correctly, you're pretty much saying that you think the Nets would end up at the 7th seed and the Hawks would end up as the 8th seed if everything stayed the way it is today.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I think we would get.
Okay, cool.
And then the Hawks in the playoffs, they could be dangerous too.
So let's head on over here to the Western Conference. And
a little different over here.
A little different scenario over here. So we've got the Phoenix Suns, which have not only wrapped up the number 1 seed in the West, but I believe they had the number 1 seed wrapped up for the whole NBA, don't they?
Oh yeah, they're the only team that's won 60 games. Yeah, or close to it.
Oh yeah.
And the Grizzlies are number 2 with 50 something. Yeah, so the top 2 seeds in the West, they are they pretty much are blowing everybody away.
Yeah. Which is kind of crazy when you think about how Memphis looks record-wise compared to everybody else, and then realize that they're not even close to Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of crazy. So we know Phoenix is going to be the 1. The Grizzlies are locked in at the 2.
Mm-hmm. And then everything gets crazy.
It's a little crazy because you got the Mavs, you got the Warriors, but with Steph Curry, being out, Warriors aren't obviously as dangerous of a team. So that makes things a little interesting. You got the Jazz only 2 games back there. Then you got the Nuggets with the exact same record as the Jazz. And then you got the Timberwolves are only a couple games back. Now, the Timberwolves probably aren't going to make anything up. So I feel like those top 6 seeds are pretty much locked in. I mean, again, like we talked about with the Eastern, mathematically it's possible, but yeah. But those top 6 teams are locked in. The top 2 spots are completely locked in. So really, in the Western Conference, we're talking about 3 through 6 fighting for position.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, it doesn't matter. Those teams, they know they're in, right? But
so
let's talk about the play-in situation. Because that 7 and 8 spot is a little bit different. So right now we got the Timberwolves sitting at 7. Got the Clippers sitting at 8. Got the Pelicans at 9. Got the Spurs at 10. And we're just going to go ahead because it's so close. And we're going to talk about how the Lakers are sitting there at 11. Because there is still a chance of them sneaking in. My personal feelings on that. It's not happening. For those of you who do not know, I am a Lakers fan, and I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. This team is they just don't have it. But we can talk more about that in a little bit. So let's talk about where does everybody see here? So first and foremost, which 4 teams do you think are actually going to end up getting in?
I actually think it's going to be the Timberwolves, the Clippers, the Pelicans, and the Lakers. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, there's only one reason why I'm picking the Lakers. Okay. And that's because Anthony Davis is actually going to make it back. So I feel that if you add his scoring, and some of the minutes that he'll eat up, so some of those other guys who have gotten some experience while he's been out can kind of go back to more of a supplementary role, I think they can outplay the Spurs these last few games. Yeah. Now, if he comes back and heaven forbid, and I do not wish this on anybody, so let me start off by that, and gets any kind of tweak or injury again, then the Spurs are going to win it. But I think when you get AD back, that's enough to put you into the 10th spot. Yeah. And he's supposed to play tonight.
He is supposed to play tonight. My concern with AD is he was already playing tentative pretty much this entire season. Now coming off the injury, I'm not convinced that he's going to come out and play the way he needs to play. I think he's going to still come out and play tentative.
Oh, man, if I'm AD, I'm coming out, I'm shooting jump shots.
Yeah.
I'm only taking certain drives to the rim. I'm keeping myself in a situation where I can keep myself as healthy as possible, and still get me about 20, 25 a game. Because at this point, you're trying to protect yourself because your team needs you.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't know if this Lakers team is good enough to pull out of this nosedive without AD playing like AD. That's my concern.
Well, I tell you, man, I think you got a couple of young guys that've gotten some experience that will bang, so they'll get down low. Mm-hmm. So that's what's been missing. Then Davis, I think he's going to play like in the mid range, right? He's going to play about 15 feet and out. He may slide in 10 feet. If he sees like where he feels like he might get an easy, clear rebound, he'll probably go get it. Yeah. But I think if you can get 15 to 20 from him a game, and you can add it to what everyone else is doing, Malik Monk's been a little bit of a slump as well. So he's going to pull out of that sooner or later. Yeah. So I think if you could do those things, you could put yourself in a position to get into playing. Now, once you're in the playing, that's a different situation. But I think they'll be the team that'll slide in that final spot because of that boost from getting Anthony Davis back.
Yeah, I will see, man. After I get a chance to actually watch them play tonight, my opinion might change.
It probably won't.
But I got to go with what I've seen so far, man. And what I've seen so far is a team that's lost. They have no answers.
Yeah, they're better with Davis.
They are even better with Davis.
Yeah, even if he's tentative, they're good enough to get in with Davis.
Yeah. So the 7 and 8 seed are pretty much locked in to play each other, right? Yeah. I mean, the Pelicans aren't. They're barely mathematically eligible to do this. So.
Yeah, they're not.
We can just take that out of the conversation.
Yeah, they don't have their best player. They're not able to do it.
So who's winning the 7, and who's going to have to play a second play-in game?
The Clippers are going to win the 7. Paul George and Norman Powell are finally back. Yeah. The Clippers are going to win the 7-8 matchup.
I would agree.
Record-wise, they're not as good, but they've suffered from a lot of injuries. They lost Paul George for a long time. They traded for Norman Powell, to bring some scoring punch. He got hurt. He's back now. Paul George is back. So now you're going to get a little bit more of them having a little bit more of that scoring that they've needed. They're another one of those teams that scoring is a problem. When you look at the Western Conference, when you look from 6 down, scoring is a problem.
Yeah, it is.
But when you get back 2 guys who put the ball in the basket at a high clip, right around your playoff push, that bodes well for you winning 1 game for a play-in.
Yeah, I see. Here's my issue with the play-in, because I'm not a fan of it.
No.
Anybody who's watched the show should know that.
No.
So you got the Timberwolves. All right, they've won 43 games. You got the Clippers have won 37.
Yep.
So to this point in the season, you have won 5 more games if you're the Timberwolves.
Mm-hmm.
And yet and still, you could end up in a situation where you have to now play an extra game and earn the eighth seed because a team who won less games than you was able to pull out one win. See, to me, that's just like it's nonsense. And even like, look, let's look at the Lakers and the Spurs, 31 wins apiece. Why should either one of those teams even deserve an opportunity to go in as the eighth seed over a team that won over 40 games? They shouldn't. It's hot garbage.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this: all the playing is going to do in the Western Conference is just move the 7th and 8th. Minnesota is going to smash, and destroy whoever wins the 9-10 game.
I agree, but the thing is, it shouldn't even be a thing. It should just be the top. If you earn the top 8 seeds, you in the playoffs. End of discussion.
Well, we know that you feel about the play-in the way that I feel about the draft for the All-Star game.
Yes.
As well as the system for who wins the last quarter.
Yeah. It's something I'm just not a fan of. And so you already obviously answered the other question of who's going to end up ultimately with those top 8 seeds. That's not going to change. We think the order between the Timberwolves and the Clippers will probably flip-flop.
Yeah.
But that's about it. The top 8 seeds in the West are pretty much set at this point. Out of those teams, do you feel like the Clippers are a threat to any of those top teams?
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure that you hadn't completely lost your mind.
No.
And I know you don't think the Timberwolves are because you only think they're going to beat the Clippers in a one-game.
No.
Okay. So who do you have representing the West?
So here's my thoughts. If the Clippers are going to have an opportunity, Memphis is the best matchup for them. Because Memphis does not have a lot of playoff experience. That's a factor that can affect you once you get to the playoffs. Regular season, whatever. But when you hit those playoffs, it's a different level of intensity, defense. It's a different level of just, play all over. The games slow down. You don't get as many of those athletic plays. Your rotations tighten up. Guys get to see you. They get to make a lot of adjustments to what you are doing well and see you day after day after day. So I think that's a matchup where if someone is going to sneak a win, whoever's the 7th seed, that could be a series that you could possibly win just because Memphis is ahead of schedule. They're a year ahead of what most people, including me, thought they would be. Not surprised at all that they're in the playoffs, but I am surprised that they're the number 2 seed.
Yeah.
I think another matchup to watch is the 3-6. Right now it's 6 with the Nuggets and the Mavericks. The Mavericks are a team that never went in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So if I'm a Nuggets fan, so if the Nuggets were able to get in and that's the team they're playing, you have to feel confident in the 7-game series that you could win because they've never done it.
Yeah.
And this might be the year that they would do it, but looking at matchups, you don't really want to play the Warriors because Steph is going to be back by the playoffs, more than likely. If he can play, he's going to be back.
Yeah.
The Jazz and the Warriors, I think the Warriors have a good chance, even without Steph, for all the games to beat the Jazz because we know the Jazz is another team. They're just like the Mavericks.
Mm-hmm.
In the playoffs, they may win a series, but there comes a point where they just choke. So I think when you look at the West, you even talk about the second round, you're probably going to have the Suns, the Grizzlies, the Nuggets, and the Warriors are probably going to be the teams in the second round.
Yeah.
Then that's when the Nuggets would probably run up against the Suns. That's what you don't want. Well, I have to look at because playoffs, how the playoffs will work, but you would either be playing the Suns, the Grizzlies, or the Warriors in the second round. And I think that's where, as I talked about, they're one of those teams. They don't have the offensive capability. If Steph comes back healthy, I'm going to take the Warriors.
Okay.
If he can't be himself, I'll go with the Suns.
Okay. Bold pick, bold pick. But I mean, hey, the Warriors obviously do have that experience.
Hmm.
They got a guy like Steph.
Hmm.
Obviously they got a coaching staff that has been there. They know how to prepare for that. They know what that process looks like of getting there. So
And their depth is stupid.
it is.
It is stupid.
Yeah.
Mm.
So man, we got about 15 minutes left. We're gonna go ahead and flip on over and talk a little NFL news. So big story that came out this week, actually just the other day. Uh Bruce Arians decided to retire. So I'm gonna kind of lay this whole scenario, and then we'll break down each individual part of this story. Okay, so Bruce Arians retires. Of course, the rumor mill started that Tom Brady basically forced him to retire, or that Tom Brady only agreed to come back because he knew he was going to retire. But he took a job in the front office for the Bucks. His replacement, Todd Bowles, very deserving coach. We both talked about actually in the offseason, we were kind of both wondering why he wasn't getting opportunities, which does lend some credence to me to the idea that Bruce Arians had already told the Bucks this was going to happen, because that might be why he wasn't going out and doing interviews. But this also has opened up and exposed that there is a workaround in the Rooney Rule. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let's start with this idea that Bruce Arians' retirement was forced by Tom Brady. You buying it or selling it?
I am selling it. It's asinine. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And I'm going to tell you why. It's very simple. If Tom Brady had a problem with Bruce Arians being the coach, why would he not have a problem with him being in the front office? Right. That doesn't make sense. Now he's capable of being a decision maker for the team as well. Yeah. Brady won a Super Bowl with Arians. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for Antonio Brown doing another Antonio Brown self-destruct, they may have gotten at least back there again this past year. I mean, can't say for sure, but they would have had a good opportunity. Yeah. So I think when you look at it, did Arians challenge Brady in a way he probably hadn't been challenged before? Yeah. Was it difficult for those two guys to kind of get on the same page? Absolutely. Because they're two people that were set in their own way that they did things, and then they had to come together. Yeah. But you don't win a Super Bowl for a guy. You don't come back and play another year for a guy, and you don't want to play for him anymore. Because if you're Tom Brady, if you really didn't want to play there, and Bruce Arians was the reason that you were retiring, you have options. You could have said, you know what, man, if you're staying here and I have a problem with you, trade me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't buy it either personally, man. I think that it is kind of crazy. Now, is it possible that maybe there was some beef between them? Maybe they had something to do with Tom Brady deciding to walk away, and then they said, "Hey, look, just so you know, Bruce Arians is going to be stepping down as the coach. He'll be over in the front office, but you won't have to see him every day because he's not going to be the coach anymore." Could that have factored into Tom agreeing to come back to Tampa as opposed to forcing a trade somewhere else? Yeah, that's a possibility. But do I feel like Tom Brady forced Bruce Arians into retirement? No. That's ridiculous.
Tom Brady has proved to be a diva in his older years in the NFL. Oh, yeah. He's a little bit of a diva. So, he probably was going to retire and come back either way.
Yeah. So let's talk about the second part of this. Todd Bowles getting hired. I know you think it's a good hire because we talked about it before. But do you have any thoughts you want to go ahead and share on that hiring?
I think you move a guy over that everybody loves. Everybody loved him with the Jets, even when the Jets were playing horrible. You did not have a lot of people throwing Todd Bowles under the bus that were part of the organization. Yeah. That tells you he had respect from the organization. He's well respected in Tampa Bay as well. Yeah. I do think he was the right hire, and a lot of coaches, they get it right that second hire. The first one was kind of like whatever. And plus, let's be real, it's the Jets. If you're a Jets fan, I'm sorry, but your team has been really bad for a long time. Personnel, front office, coaching staffs, it's just been like a dark cloud over you. So if that's the place you start, that really shouldn't be held against you if you're not successful there. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I like with this hire too is it would have been real easy for them to just give him like an interim coach kind of thing, or for them just to give him like a 1-2 year deal. But they gave him a 5-year deal. Now, I don't think any of us think that Tom Brady's going to still play another 5 years. Who knows? Because the way the NFL is going now, it's not like anybody's allowed to hit the dude. So, maybe he will. But the fact that they actually went ahead and said, we're going to give you a 5-year deal, I think speaks volumes about how much he's probably grown as a coach. Because like you said, a lot of these guys, they do so much better that second time around. So I think this really, him getting that 5-year contract speaks to what the organization saw from him on a day in, day out basis on how he conducted himself and how they felt like he would carry himself as a head coach the second time around.
Yeah, agree.
So let's talk about this loophole that's been exposed by this. So for those who have not actually had a chance to see this yet, I'll briefly explain. So essentially, as of March 1st, the coaching ranks are basically considered like done. Like all the coaching hires at that point are finished. So teams at that point are allowed to tell you cannot interview assistant coaches anymore, because that's basically, their coaching staff is locked in. You can't try to disrupt their coaching staff anymore. So what happens is normally under the old Rooney Rule, you had to interview at least one minority candidate. Now you have to interview 2 minority candidates, both who are outside of the organization. So technically speaking, the Bucks actually violated the Rooney Rule with this hire, even though they hired a minority coach, because they did not interview 2 minority coaches. They didn't interview 2 minority coaches in the building, let alone outside of the organization. But they were able to go around the rule because of this March 1st deadline that locks in all the rosters. Because it would have been unreasonable to expect them to be able to go out and interview anybody, because no one had to actually grant the interviews. Now, obviously, no one's going to make a big deal out of this right now, because they're going to say, well, hey, it was a minority coach that got hired, all as well. But what if Jerry Jones decides tomorrow that he wants to fire Mike McCarthy and he wants to pursue Sean Payton? He can now go out and do that, and he doesn't have to interview a single minority candidate before he brings in Sean Payton.
Well, I think one thing to think about with that, though, is theoretically, yes. But Sean Payton technically is still under contract with New Orleans.
Yeah.
Even though he retired, they still own his coaching rights. So if you wanted to get Sean Payton, you're going to have to give up some compensation.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it a different on that point. New Orleans would have to be willing to bring him out of retirement and trade him to you.
Yeah. But the compensations and the fact he's still technically under contract and all that, just that part aside, this is something that could actually happen. And it sets up the opportunity for some dangerous precedent.
Well, I think the big reason why this move won't be a problem for most is because it wasn't an organization saying we're getting rid of a coach. It was a coach deciding I'm stepping away. Here's a guy that I think, given his input to the staff, to the organization, should be the next coach, right? And that's what they decided to go with. Kind of like what happened with Roy Williams at North Carolina. What's going to happen with Coach K next year? So I think it's more that. I think if you have a firing and something like this happens, I think that's when you're going to hear from the NFL. Yeah. But you are correct in the fact that the president is there. The possibility for somebody to feel like that's okay is there. And, I'm big on presidents. So I think that the important part to this is that it's not, number one, an outside hire, and number two, the coach left of their own volition. They weren't forced out by the organization. There wasn't any ill will. They took another job, but the organization decided, hey, the guy's 70 years old. Decided, I'm done with coaching. I want to go do something else, be able to spend more time with my family, my grandkids. So you can understand that. So I think that's what would make it different. But I do agree that it does set a precedent that someone else could try to manipulate differently.
Yeah.
But I think if you do, I think the NFL is going to be right there to correct your behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they've already started talking about trying to find some ways to close the loophole up. But it is kind of shocking that to this point that no one's even recognized that this was a loophole. It just it just kind of came out just now. So speaking of, and I'm going to go ahead and put this in parentheses, air quotes here for you because it is April 1st, so you have to take everything with a grain of salt today. But there is a report that the Dolphins have signed Xavier Howard to a new contract. It is a 5-year contract with $50 million in new money, which makes him. Now we both know how these work. It's not all guaranteed money, apparently, obviously, but
Hmm.
his average pay per year 25 million, which would make him the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. Yeah. Your reaction is my thoughts.
I saw that. I was able to glance at it earlier. I'm obviously not doing too much reading at this point, but I was
Yep.
able to kind of see a little bit about that. And man, I gotta say, you guys better hope you get that new contract with that bloated salary cap, because if not, it's gonna be a lot of people team wise that are gonna be screwed in the future. We're overpaying guys, I think, a little bit, and obviously, once it happens with one guy, there's
Mhm.
75 people.
Yeah.
No matter what works. Hey, if he's getting paid that, I want to get paid that.
Yeah.
Um. So, man,
Um
man.
we'll, we'll touch on this one real quick. Not a whole lot to add for it. The big free agent signing this week, Bobby Wagner deciding to go to the Rams, choosing them over the Ravens. A lot of people wondering how the Rams can possibly keep bringing in all these people. Simple cap space calculation for you here, people. The Rams are paying like 5 people. Everybody else on the team is basically making minimum wage.
Hmm.
That's how they can afford to keep bringing these people in. That's your cap lesson for the day. You're welcome. That's Steven Bice's 30-second cap lesson. Um, so the last thing I want to talk about, man, in the last couple of minutes we have here, give a shout out to Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. He actually is giving his former quarterback Colin Kaepernick an opportunity. He's having to come out and actually be the special guest and I think like special captain for the Blue and Maize game, and he's also going to allow him to throw. They're going to do kind of like a little mini pro day at the halftime of that game, and they've invited several NFL scouts, and he's going to give Kaepernick the opportunity to throw the ball to the players for that. So just giving him a chance to show that he can still go out there and make the throws in front of some NFL scouts. But the other thing that came out of this is Kaepernick has come out and made it very clear publicly that he's okay with taking a backup quarterback job. So all this talk that people have had about, oh, he doesn't want to be a backup. Well, you can't say that now because the man himself came out and said he's want to be a backup.
All lies.
So I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge that. I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to share on that situation, but I just wanted to take a second to at least acknowledge it.
One thing I want to say about it is big ups to Jim Harbaugh for that. That's dope, man. That's cool to do that for him, because whether he gets signed or not, it's the fact that you're showing you support him, and that's cool because um he didn't do anything to be out of the league. So the fact that he's out of the league is kind of garbage to me. I didn't think he was going to continue to be a starter, but the fact that
Yeah,
he's completely out of the league, that's garbage. There's a lot of guys that are worse quarterbacks than him that are getting paid to be in the league. So big ups to Jim Harbaugh for that, and for those scouts and teams that are going to actually come out and check him out. Big ups to you as well for at least saying, we'll give him an opportunity. We'll look at him and see what we see.
yeah, absolutely. Well, man, that is a wrap for the evening. Want to give a shout out to everybody who tuned in tonight. Anybody was joining us up in the chat. As always, man, if y'all ever want to chat with us, man, just jump on live, type your comments in the chat. We love to be interactive. That's what we're all about.
Yes, sir.
Of course, if you're catching the replay, you can comment on the replay too, man. We do see those comments. So, definitely hit us up there. Follow us on Twitter and make sure that you come back. Do us one favor before you bounce out tonight. Hit the like button on this video because that's what tells YouTube that you enjoy the show and that YouTube should share it with other people. So you'll be helping your boys out, man. So give us that like if y'all don't mind.
Yes, sir. If you're watching the replay, same thing. Hit that like for your boys.
Same thing. And we'll see y'all back next Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Y'all better know that.
The tag team champs
of the world.
WrestleMania's Saturday and Sunday. Check.